these words called as client side and the server side. You have to understand these words because we're going to use this language in further sections. We're going to talk about client side, server side, then you should understand what I am talking about. So before that, let's understand what is client side and what is server side. And imagine the situation wherein Jim is basically the buyer and Bob is the seller, and Jim is trying to access Bob's computer via the host name. And then Bob actually have a server where all the files has been stored, all those images, videos, and all these files has been stored. And the Jim want to send a request to Bob saying that I want to buy a phone. So in this context, Jim logs in into the web browser. He types bob.com. He send the request to buy the phone. Okay. Then the Bob computer accept that request and say, okay, let me send you a response saying that, okay, I have a phone available and you can buy for this price. And then the transaction between Jim and Bob happens, and Jim can agree to whatever images he's been showing, and then he can agree to pay the price via the payment method that Bob is offering. And once he pays it, then Bob will transfer that phone to Jim. Okay, so that's basically in this transaction, right? Jim is client side. He is initiating the request. Okay, he is client side. He is the one who is sending the request. And Bob is server side, who is hosting the details and who is responsible is to send the response. So remember, the client side is where the Jim access the browser, and browser is sending a request to the Bob's computer. So Jim becomes the client side, and the Bob's computer, who is hosting all the files, send the response based on the request sent to the Bob. Okay, and Bob is called as server side. There's another name given to him. The client side can also called as requester. Really, he's a requester because he is requesting the details from Bob, right? He is the one logging onto the computer and typing bob.com. So he's a requester, he is client side, and the one that is providing the response is called as provider. Okay, we'll be using this terminology to understand further concepts. We'll be using client side, server side, requester, and provider. In this client server technology, there is a requester and there is a provider, and the requester is always requesting the information with the provider, and provider is basically a server sitting in the internet with some files in it, right? And requester is always requesting that information to the provider, and the provider, once it gets those requests, it serves the request by providing a response back to the requester. And all this communication of request and response happening over the protocol called as HTTP protocol. So whenever you see HTTP protocol, so remember that definition. Whenever there is an HTTP protocol, requester is requesting the information and providing is sending that response to the requester. Okay, and all this is happening via an HTTP protocol, which is nothing but an application protocol that is used to transfer data in the web, and that data is nothing but the hypertext. Okay, and we have looked at what is client side. The one who is requesting is called as client side, and one who is providing all those information that is sitting in that server is called as server side. Well, there could be multiple clients and single server. Well, multiple clients like your mobile phone, computer, laptop, all these are trying to access the server and requesting to fetch those details, and server is just accepting those requests and sending the response with all those details back to these clients. Okay, and all this communication happens via the HTTP protocol. Okay, so that's how the client server technology works. Server holds all the information and it is a powerful machine. Most of the times your servers are powerful because server has to handle all the requests from the client. Okay, so it holds all the information, and the job of server is to get the request and send a response. Okay, many clients initiate the request to the server to fetch the data, and then server accepts the request and send the data as a response to that client. Okay, and then client server technology is also called as request response pattern. So if you're hearing request response pattern for the first time, it is embedded in the concept of client server technology. If you understand client server technology, it is nothing but request and response pattern. Client initiate the request and server give the response back to the client. Okay, that's nothing but called as client server technology. So that's all for this lecture, and I'll see you in the next one. Welcome to the lecture on how website works. So let's understand what are the components that makes up a website. Well, we have seen the request and response pattern, that is nothing but the client server technology. The client side, basically a browser, someone will initiate the request, someone will type like phptraining.com. The request is sent to the server, and server will have some files on it, and once it gets the request, it sends a response back to the browser, and whatever the request is requested for, whatever the resources that they have on the server is requested, will be sent from server to the client. Okay, that's nothing but the client server technologies. So let's understand what are the components sitting behind this phptraining.com on the server. On the phptraining.com server, there is something called as web server. Okay, there are different types of web server. We're going to look into types of the web servers that we have. To understand, there is a web server who is listening to these requests. Okay, this server is basically saying, okay, this is the request, this is the response, this is the request, this is the response. That's the job of the web server. The web server is always in the listening mode. It is listening for requests, and whatever the request is being sent to him, it will try to execute that. Like if the request is to get a file, then it will execute that command to get the file and send that response via the same web server. And if the request is to execute some language, let's say you have a PHP program, Python program sitting somewhere in the server, and the request is to execute that program, then it will execute that program onto the server, and whatever response come from that program sent again via the same web server. And your web server typically have database as well. If you're storing the database and you're requesting to fetch the details, then the code that you wrote at your server side will connect to the database, fetch the data, and then it will send back to the web server. Then the web server will send the data back to this client. Okay, similarly, any request that is been done to fetch any of these static files, hypertext files or media files like images, pictures, is again taken care by the web server. So in this context, so web hosting comes in picture when you want to have these details. When you have this web server, you want to have some language support, you want to have database files and everything, you buy this from web hosting. Okay, and if you want to have a domain name, that is phptraining.com, you get it from the domain name providers. That is nothing but the GoDaddy and the Namecheap. The web hosting is provided by the HostGator, Bluehost, DigitalOcean, where you get the server and some of the softwares installed on it. Domain name you buy from GoDaddy and the Namecheap, where they sell the domain name, and then you map the domain name with the IP address. Okay, so let's take an example and I'll show you how these things work in real time. So let's do an example and understand how these things work. So this is a server that is sitting in the internet, and I have a public IP address for it. Okay, and on this server I'm running a web server called as Tomcat, Apache Tomcat, and it is in the listening mode. You see it's blinking, it's listening for request. Okay, the server has been started up. Well, this server is in listening mode. It is listening for request, and whenever the request comes, it will serve that request. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a folder. There's a folder called PHP training, and I'm placing an image, I'm placing a video file, then there is something called as an HTML file. Consider this as a file, and what I want to do is I want to fetch these files from the server onto my browser, right? And remember the role of web server. So all the request goes to this web server. This web server will locate the files under its own web apps folder. Okay, it's under Tomcat web apps in the PHP training. So when we try to access, we will provide this name PHP training, and we'll say I want to access these files. Then we'll see from the browser how this Tomcat will get the request and send the response to us, and how the HTTP protocol works in the real time. Okay, we have learned about the client server technology, request and response. We talked about HTTP. All these things we're going to see in the real time. And the challenge that we are trying to understand here is the server is having all these files. Okay, how a client could make a request and fetch all these details from the server. Okay, well, this is nothing called as hypertext, the text file, image file, video file, and then we'll try to initiate a request to fetch those details. Okay, so I'm going to minimize this and I'm going to open my browser now. Okay, well, this is the IP address where my Tomcat is running, and I have my files, and we have seen the phptraining.com, that is nothing but the folder there, and inside the folder there is a file called index.html. So I'm making a request to my server saying I want to access this index.html file. So when I click enter, So you see the image is been fetched, the video has been fetched. I can play the video, right? I can play the video, means the video is fetched to my client browser, and there is some text that has been displayed onto my browser. Okay, so what is happening in the background? How these things all work together? You are sending a request from your browser to the server, and server has a public IP address. Remember, this has to be accessible from anywhere from the internet, and this is unique. And using this unique IP address, I have a web server running on that server, and on that web server I created a folder called PHP training, and I have some files on it. So I'm trying to say to this server, to the web server, you have a folder called PHP training, can you fetch me this file? And this file actually embeds all those images and videos, and using which it is trying to print those onto my browser. Okay, so let's quickly jump back to our server again. So this is our web server, and we have this doc image. Let me open that up, and then we have this video file. These are called as resources. These are called as the hypertext. Okay, let's go back to our browser. This time we will see HTTP protocol in action. So for that, right click on your browser, go to inspect, or you can say Ctrl+Shift+I. You will come to this window. You can toggle that dock onto your bottom. Then you go to something called as network tab. Okay, so now we will see what is the request that is been sent and what is the response that we're gonna get. Okay, for that you have to refresh the page. So when you refresh the page and when you open up your network tab, you should able to see the files here. Okay, this browser has sent a request to the server, and server has responded with these resources to it. Okay, this is request and response in real time, right? If you open or click any of this, you go to headers, you will see there is a request URL. So you are sending a request to this URL, and there is a response, and response is nothing but your HTML code. That is nothing but some files, okay, text files. And you can see the files here, right? You get the image, you got your video, you got your files, and this all fetched from the server. Let's do one more time refresh. And refresh basically getting all these files, just telling you how much seconds it has taken, milliseconds it has taken to fetch those resources from the server. Okay, so this is how a website works, right? A website is hosted onto a server which has an public IP address, and then you create a folder on it, and then you create some files on it, and using a browser you try to access these files, and this file is basically linking up other resources on the server. So once you request this URL, then the server, that is nothing but the Tomcat server, will get the request, and it will respond with all the files that has been requested and send back to the browser. Okay, that's how a website works. So for that website, you see here, I don't have a domain name for it. I can still access my server with the IP address. As I told you, TCP/IP does not require a host name. It works on the IP address. And this is how the HTTP works. This is not TCP/IP protocol. This is an HTTP protocol. So this is an HTTP protocol, hypertext transfer protocol, using which you can send a request to a server and fetch all the hypertext from the server back to your client side. Well, that's all about how a website works, and I'll see you in the next one. Hello and welcome to the lecture. Let's understand type of languages that we have. So we have three different types of languages. First is called as programming languages, scripting languages, and markup languages. You have to understand the difference between them because they have written and implemented differently. And the purpose of each of this language is to solve a different challenges. Okay, so you have to understand this, what you're trying to learn, right? When you're trying to learn a language, whether it is a programming language, scripting language, or a markup language. So the examples of a programming language are like C, C++, and Java. The most important job of a programming language is to interact with the machine. Programs like C, C++, and Java are famous examples of how they can really interact with this machine. So they have this machine level language converted, using which they can really interact with the hardware as well. Okay, that's the power of the programming language. So when you're learning a programming language, you are mostly learning how do you interact with your machines, right? And if you want to write machine level programming, this kind of programming languages will help you do that. Let's look at scripting language. So PHP, JavaScript, Python and Ruby are scripting language. They are built on top of the programming languages. Okay, they are not the underlying languages. They use like C, C++ or Java or other programming language, and they are built on top of it to solve a specific challenge. Well, PHP is a scripting language that runs on the server. If you want to run a program on the server side, you write PHP. If you want to run a program on the client side, you do JavaScript. Again, Ruby runs on the server side. Python can also be written on the server side. And also Ruby and Python can do many more than just running on the server side. You can write desktop applications as well. But remember that scripting language is actually built on top of any other programming languages. They use some internal libraries and they are built on top of it. So whenever you're working with scripting language, you will find it is easier compared with the programming language because they implement all the complex logic in the behind, and then they give you very easy implementation to write those programs. That's why scripting languages get famous, right? JavaScript, Python, PHP, Ruby, they're all very famous compared to C, C++, because all the complex logic is already pre-written in these languages. And when you try to use them, you're not implementing those complex logic, rather you're using those libraries which has implemented all those complex logic into it. Okay, that's why they are very famous. The other type of language is called as markup language. HTML and XML is markup language. HTML has a different purpose. HTML is used in web to link the resources. We're going to learn about what is HTML and all those things. But remember, HTML and XML are called as markup language because the way they write it, they mark it up all the details inside the file. And when they mark it, they say what they are marking up. They are marking up to link a resource. They are marking up to display a content, or they are marking up to link another file into the server. For this lecture, understand there are three types of languages: programming languages, scripting languages, and markup languages. And you have to understand the differences between this three of it. Well, programming languages are mostly used as compilers. So we're going to look at what is compiler and interpreter next. But understand, programming languages uses compiler to compile the code, and scripting languages are interpreter. They don't need to compile it, they run as it is. So we're going to see an example how this works in the real time. And the next section will be to understand compiler and interpreter. Okay, so that's all for this lecture of different types of languages that we have. Let's look at compiler versus the interpreter. Hello and welcome to the lecture. Let's understand what is the difference between compiler versus interpreter. So we have looked at different languages: programming language, scripting language, and markup language. And we have also discussed programming language uses compiler like C, C++, and Java. And scripting language use interpreter like PHP language, JavaScript, Python, and Ruby. So what is the real difference between compiler and an interpreter? Let's understand this. Well, in the compiler based languages, you write your code, then you compile your code. And once you compile the code, you get another machine level code which you basically execute it. Okay, so there is this two part that you have to do. Whenever you write a code, you have to compile it and you have to run the compiled code. That's the programming languages like C, C++, and Java, where you write the code but you cannot execute that code. You have to compile it first. Then once you compile, you get something called as machine level code, and then you execute that machine level code. Okay, so let's look at an example. Let's understand how to compile a Java program. Okay, so I have this Java program. Let's open this up, open with Notepad. Okay, very simple Java program to print hello world, right? But you cannot execute this code. Okay, you have to compile this. When you compile, you get something called as machine level code, and then you execute that code. So let's run this program. So before you run this program in the programming languages, you have to compile this. When you compile, you will get something called as machine level language. So when you compile, observe there's a file create, and you can only run that file. Okay, so let's compile the program. And when you compile the program, it will create something called as class file. So let's open this file. Okay, you cannot understand this program, right? Because this is machine level language. Okay, so let's run this. Okay, so you're able to print it now. So this is basically a compiler. You compile your code, then the file is created, compiled file is created, which is executed. Then you execute the compiled code, which is understood by your machine. So in programming languages, you have to compile the program. That is the first step. And then you have to run the compiled code. Okay, and the compiled code is not really in English. It will be in the machine language. Okay, and that's understood by the Java only. And then Java can run the compiled code, but it cannot execute the Java program, right? It cannot understand what is this English program that you have written. You have to compile that first, right? Once you compile, then only you can run that file. Okay, there's a two-step process in compiler. Okay, let's understand interpreter. So let's understand what is interpreter. So I have PHP basically is a scripting language and it is an interpreter. So if you open any PHP file, okay, it has hello world. In order to execute PHP, you don't have to compile this. So if you go to this folder, okay, you have 1.php. You don't have to compile it first, but you can really execute as it is. You can see I did not compile it. There's no compiled code here as well. Okay, this is called as interpreter, where it is in interpreter you don't have to compile it. It interprets as it is running the file. Okay, so that's the difference between compiler and an interpreter. Well, that's the difference between a compiler, wherein you write the program, compile it and run it. In interpreter, you don't have to compile it. You just write it and then run it. And PHP is a scripting language that use interpreter. Java is a programming language which use compiler. Okay, so that's the difference between compiler and interpreter, and I'll see you in the next one. Hello and welcome to the lecture. Let's do the recap on what we have learned in this section. Well, we looked at what is protocol. Protocol is nothing but set of rules that two devices agree before they start communicating, right? Any two devices want to talk to each other, they agree onto a protocol. That's what we learned about protocols. Then we understood about what is internet. Well, internet is a network where group of computers connected together with a single wire to exchange information. Then we talked about TCP/IP protocol. TCP/IP protocol is used to exchange data packets between the system. Then we talked about domain name service. Well, domain name service is used to map host name with the IP address. Then we talked about HTTP. Well, HTTP stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol, using which we can exchange pictures, videos and files over the web, and this kind of data is called as hypertext. Then we talked about client server technology. In client server technology, client makes a request for a resource in the server and a server sends a response by sending that resource to the client. Then we talked about how to host your own web service. Well, to host your own web service, you need to purchase a domain name and a space from web hosting to publish your website. Then on the domain name service, you basically map your hosting services. Then we talked about differences of different types of languages, and also we talked about what is compiler and an interpreter. Compiler is used to compile the code into machine level code. Interpreter runs the code at the execution times. These are the things I want you to remember and take away from this section. Hello and welcome to the section summary. Let's do a quick summary of what you should be able to learn by now. So by now you should be able to understand terms like protocol, HTTP, internet, TCP/IP and DNS. Make sure when someone asks you any of this definition, give your own definition of how these things work. Then you should know what are DNS providers and web hosting providers in the market. And you should understand what is a client server technology, how typically a website works, and what are the components of website that basically makes the website works. Like what is the type of the web servers that you have. Then you should understand the difference between programming language, scripting language and the markup language. If you have decided to learn any of the languages, you should know in which category it falls and why are you learning it. Then you should also know what is the difference between a compiler and an interpreter. Okay, so that's all this lectures on this section on web basics, and I'll see you in the next one.